Good afternoon. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. It is Utah's number one sports talk, and it is a Thursday here in downtown Salt Lake City. I am Porter Larson, filling in for one Spence Checketts. I'll be with you tomorrow alongside, wait for it, drum roll please, Tony Parks. He's over there. He's in studio. We got a bunch to get to. Utah football 14 days away from kickoff against Idaho. BYU in the Big 12 kicking off. Hey, how about Bronco Mendenhall in the Pac-12? Jazz and NBA offseason. RSL in action last night. PGA Tour is in round 2 of their playoff phase. Get to some Salt Lake Bees and baseball with our guy Tony Parks. Now, what else can we get to, TP? There's plenty. There's plenty.
Oh, my goodness.
Including some
so much going on in the Big 12.
Off-season college football drama included.
Woo. Wow. So much happening, man. I mean, usually you get to this time of year and the conversation is about what's coming up with the season, and there's no doubt. I don't think I've ever seen a year where there has been more conversation about what has happened last year and this past offseason right when it was over. I have never seen anything like it in the years that I've been around this. Usually you get to August, it's always what's coming up, what's coming up, what's coming up. And it still is. I'm not saying it's not. But now we're talking Monster Energy patches. We're talking, there's a lawsuit involved. There's so much going on that has to do with what's gone on in the rearview mirror. And usually it's like, okay, well, what does this mean for the future? What is it? Well, no, I can't remember the last time we were in August, and maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe 3 years ago there was something that I'm missing, but where there's been so much talk about what happened last December. It's unreal. So, and I'm excited for everything with college football coming up. Of course, we want the games to get going. I think the landscape of college football changing. Now you're seeing teams get creative. BYU with fan experiences. Here's the cost for it. You don't have to pay it. Don't pay it. You have, private equity involved in a local college football team, right? Like there's so much. It's so wild to see with everything that's going on with college football. Teams trying to figure out how to do what it takes. That, I think, is the hardest part about competitive situations. And college football, more than any, there were no guardrails to this thing. And so now teams are trying to figure out how to do what it takes.
Whatever it takes.
And I thought Kalani Sitake had interesting comments, a couple weeks ago. And I know I was on the road when it first came out. And he was talking about everything with doing the most with the least. And, we need more resources and we need to, and I think it's going to be so unique in this era to watch ADs and coaches who may perceive what is enough and what is not. And if there is a scenario, and I'm not saying there is, but anytime you have going forward an AD and a coach where if one of them feels like the commitment level is not matching expectation level, I'm curious how those relationships not only survive, but how do you succeed with those relationships in a workplace environment if commitment doesn't match expectation? That is something, and by the way, it's all perception, of course. I don't know. Everybody's going to feel like, well, this is enough. You've mismanaged that. Oh, you've been given plenty. You're not coaching well enough. I'm not saying that that's what Brian Santiago is saying to Kalani Sitake, but that's going to be a never-ending thing, especially when you're not the conference that has as much money and as much of the resources as a monster right now that is the Big Ten.
Way less room for error.
Right.
For sure.
And so now it comes down to, well, are you getting the most out of what we were giving you? Or are you not getting enough? And nobody really knows the actual answer. That's just something that is always going to be discussed going forward. So teams are going to have to do so much to figure it out. And then everybody talks about, well, how does that affect the fan? Well, you as the fan, you still get to decide what you want to do, how you want to do it, and if you want to pay it. And I don't think you're less of a fan if you don't. If you don't give to an NIL collective, you're not less of a fan. If you don't buy a ticket, you're not less of a fan. If you don't go to a road game, you're not less of a fan. And I said the same thing, by the way, when the Jazz had kind of this weird previous, few years where they were figuring some things out on exactly what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. I didn't think you were less of a fan if you didn't splurge a bunch of money to go watch an organization that didn't have a clear forward perspective on what they were doing.
You're charging more for lesser product, right?
Yes.
That's just the basis of it. Now it's sports, so there's supposed to be, and everyone always looks at it as like a loyalty thing. You're invested or you're not. You're all in or you're in the way, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there's also a responsibility on the institutional side to bring that value.
You better.
Right?
Well,
and we talked about this a lot with the BYU stuff and Kalani. Spence and I discussed how you want to get, if this is going to be a thing, if there's a chasm between you and an administration, if you're a football coach or otherwise, you'd like to get that out of the way in December or January, as Utah did.
Yes.
Not so fast. The University of Utah has filed a lawsuit against Kyle Whittingham's brother, Freddie Whittingham, to the tune of $1 million or so for breach of contract. So the drama that we were kind of talking about, they didn't avoid it in September, in August, in kickoff time. It's very much apparent. I think that Morgan Scalley will not allow that to seep into his locker room, as I believe Kalani will not allow that stuff to seep into their locker room. But what we do know, Tony, is that if you let it fester, if you can't figure out a way to bridge that gap, it does create a lot of issues that you will see come to a head.
Oh, yeah.
As we learned late December, early January here in Salt Lake City.
And it builds unexpressed negative emotions. And those unexpressed negative emotions eventually get expressed in different ways. One of my favorite, maybe my favorite Urban Meyer story ever, really good friend of mine who played for him, that first year Urban Meyer's there, they are a much better team, and they're winning a lot of games, and they're looking great. They had the early season loss to Texas A&M, but there was no shame in that. Alex Smith and company are looking good. The defense is on point, and they had this random game against New Mexico where they get beat at home, soundly beat at home. It was a shocker. And Urban Meyer is in the locker room with the entire team, and he said, if you don't like your result, you can do one of two things. You can lower your expectation, or you can raise your level of commitment. And Urban, one of the things with Urban was, you can criticize a number of things about him. I'm not saying that he's void of criticism, but one thing he had is incredible influence on a group of people, on a forward direction and what they were going to do. Every one of you out there listening to this show, you've probably had a boss or you've had somebody that has impact on what's going on in what you're trying to do in your career, where their commitment level doesn't match their expectation, and it is a giant elephant in the room. And when that happens, it is really difficult to function with everything you're looking for when there's not a clear picture.
Right.
And so that, for every athletic department, that is going to be a really big deal. I could see an AD in the future being like, okay, tell me what it takes. We're already doing this, and this, and this. Now I'm going to flip it from coach side to AD side. Tell me what it takes. Give me the exact metric. Where is it? Okay, so if we get you that, what should we accomplish?
And if
conference championship, we should win.
Don't.
So you're saying if we give you this, you should win the conference championship. So if you don't, how do you now give us money back to make sure? And coaches be like, we signed a contract and that says I get this guaranteed money. Well, hold on a minute. So now your commitment's not matching your expectation. I could see this thing getting sideways, especially when an AD didn't hire a coach. And I'm not saying that's what's happening between these two, but right now we're at this level where everybody wants more and more and more, and there's going to be all this posturing going on from everybody claiming if we just had more, we could do this, or we didn't reach these heights because we didn't get that. And it becomes a bizarre, indirect scapegoating, and it becomes unique on how the media, the fans, and everybody reacts to it. It becomes very unique because where the actual truth is, nobody really knows. I was in a Houston Rockets locker room where Chris Paul...
You were the point guard.
Yes, as you know, I was the backup point guard to Chris Paul. I was in a Houston Rockets locker room where Chris Paul was all about commitment to defense, and this is what it takes to win a championship. And he never won one, but he knew that a defensive identity was needed with the Rockets, and he pushed on it. And he had to push so hard from a group with James Harden and some other guys who really didn't like that whole accountability on defense thing. They kind of liked it where they did their own thing and switch everything, and we'll just outscore teams. And it took everything to ooze that out of him. Well, eventually, it creates a rift. Well, Chris Paul was in the minority, wasn't he? But was he in the wrong? No. But the idea was, well, James Harden's, MVP, this and that. Clearly,
James Harden
Chris
just
Paul
signed a 3-year extension, by the way.
Clearly, Chris Paul must be in the wrong. Let's get this guy out of town.
How do you think of it?
And it didn't go well. But the whole point was, you're going to have situations with different athletic departments that are going to go out there where someone's in the minority, but they're not in the wrong. And that could be Kalani right now. I'm not saying Kalani's to blame or Brian Santiago's, but I'm saying, this is going to be a part of this circus that goes on in college sports. And I find it unique on how each athletic department is going to try and find alignment. Because if you're going to be in the Big 12 and you have misalignment in any way, it's going to be really hard to get to championship level anything.
Well, and I find it interesting and unique how we have some cool perspectives on it, right? Utah is trying their own private equity thing with Utah, and that brings a added different level of pressure, some outside voices into your room. With BYU, they've kind of always had in some form or fashion their own little private equity thing going on, right? With the church and with a little bit of, I guess, a clandestine unknown as far as where the money is and where it's going. That's something that's been unique to BYU as a private institution for a long time. So here in Utah specifically, we have a unique look at a couple of teams who are in the Big 12 who have very different but sometimes parallel challenges in this new era of college football. Mm-hmm. And then we have Utah State, who is a mid-major, one of the big question marks in this era of college football is, where are these guys left out? Where is the Utah State, the Boise State, the San Diego State, when and if we move on to a different-looking ecosystem without the NCAA or with the Power 2 conferences is what it's kind of looking like right now. Mm-hmm. So we've got a really unique perspective here in the state on not just the future of college football, but how it hits in different institutions and in different communities. Because we're getting a little head start on it with Utah going out of the gates and being the first to do an individual private equity deal. The Big 12 doing their own kind of private equity thing. And then, as I mentioned, BYU with their own very unique situation there. It's going to be fun to cover. I won't say that I quite like, as a guy who just likes to break down football, to be quite honest with you. I don't love covering court cases and financial filings and lawsuits and all of the above as much as we have been. I really don't. I would rather just talk about 4-3 defenses and how you're going to attack them.
Well, look at this. Case in point, real quickly.
It's interesting.
Yeah, what we've been on the air with 20-something minutes. We've talked college football this whole time. We haven't said one player's name.
Right.
That's where college football is right now. And it's really hard. I really feel for the fan. Because the fan's like, you know what? I got tickets for October 9th or whatever day, and I'm going. And I'm bringing the family, and I'm going into this and that, and every conversation is, are we doing enough? Are we not doing enough? Are we competitive enough? Are we not competitive enough? And I find it interesting right now with BYU and Utah, that game coming up November 7th, because there will be so much to discuss about, okay, did we lose this game because we're not committed to XYZ, or we weren't focused on XYZ? And you know what it could come down to? A great tackle made in the open field by one really good player. Guys, that's really what this is about.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter the check that player's getting, right? Once we get to game day, once we get to kickoff, whatever type of money or agreement that player has is in the past. That's why I cannot wait for 14 days from right now, Tony, when we can just start talking football And all of these distractions from the offseason, although still there, we get to put them on the side burner. We do that in 14 days. All right. How about we get to our next guest, who we will talk some college football with, but we'll also talk some offseason basketball with. He is one Craig Bolerjack, the voice of the Utah Jazz. He joins us after a quick break. This first segment brought to you by our friends at IFA Country Stores. Like any good coach, it's time to update your game plan for a healthy green lawn. As the hot weather continues this month, make sure you're using IFA Step 3 spring and summer lawn food for healthy turf that stays green every season. IFA Step 3 lawn food, it's the ultimate lawn owner power move, helping to grow the things you love. It's IFA and IFA.coop online. Craig Bolerjack, voice of the Jazz, joins us on the other side. It is Utah's #1 sports talk. I am Porter Larson. That is Tony Parks, hosting The Drive on a Thursday right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. A little Def Leppard bringing us back in.
Always was a huge fan growing up with this.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, my gosh.
As big of a fan as our next guest, Craig Bolerjack?
No. I'm the number one person in the fan club of the next guest.
I think he's on one of their lists. He's like one of those guys that shows up to all the concerts, front row. You see Bowler all buttoned up, nice haircut during the season. But in the off season, from what I understand, he's on the rail at Def Leppard concerts with a little grown out hair, maybe a tank top on.
Yeah.
What else, Bowler?
Oh, it's all the above. Just a ball cap. Cold beer, just sitting there listening to the tunes. I will say this: I had tickets to see ZZ Top on Tuesday, and we knew that Frank Beard passed away. That later, I think it was early Monday morning or early Tuesday morning. And so those tickets, I got a notification like, come on, this has got to be spam at 4:45 in the afternoon. I was just getting ready to go, and they canceled the Salt Lake and the Colorado Springs concerts. So ZZ Top took out of respect for Frank. They have a new drummer, but Frank Beard was the original, and he had passed away. So no ZZ Top on Tuesday night for me.
That's a bummer.
It was a bummer. Yeah, no, he's a good group. That's a good group. One of the first groups I saw back in college too, and that and Foghats. Tells you where my brain is, right? With rock and roll.
No, I love it. What was your favorite concert you ever went to, especially if it was a rock concert?
I think probably. Let's see. I got to be honest. Probably Def Leppard in Vegas was outstanding. Yeah, I've seen them several times. In the day, ZZ Top was good. I know this is embarrassing for me, but I actually went and saw ABBA about 2 weeks ago, and they kicked it.
Yeah.
I'm
sure they put on a good show.
That. Yeah, they put on a fun show. It was fun. But, yeah, I like live concerts. You really judge how they sound, right, in studio versus live. And so you kind of – I've seen Three Dog Night, Chicago, a lot of these bands, they're all in their 70s, and I mean, look at the Rolling Stones.
Still touring, still making albums. Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And Aerosmith, I mean, Steven Tyler's voice is gone, so I had tickets to that, and they canceled that. So, yeah, all these bands are still trying to tour, but they're getting close to the 80 mark, and you kind of have to decide when it's time just to step aside.
Well, and as you mentioned, Bowler, when you see a band live, there's a different view into just how talented they are, right? Because especially in today's age, there is a lot you can do post-recording in production to make things sound all buttoned up, to make even voices sound better, a lot of auto-tune, a lot of, cleaning up of recordings. You can make a band sound really good on a CD or a studio recording, and then sometimes you see them live, and you're like, "What's going on here?" I've had a few of those experiences, but some of the guys you mentioned usually put on a really good show.
Yeah, well, I know Tony Parks. He's never ever had to be auto-tuned at all.
No, I'll just change the voice. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Jazz Basketball here on the Jazz Radio Network. It's the Utah Jazz against the Pesky Wolves here on KJazz TV.
Time out, Hot Rod. Do you have a bowler yet?
No, I mean, bowler is, I don't know.
He's still active, so it might be tough.
I don't know. I can't say I really had a bowler. It wasn't like, do your bowler. Nobody was ever like, welcome on in. The Jazz and the 76ers to infinity and beyond. Let's go. I don't know. I never really had a...
I might have to request that you at least, hey,
create one.
Just work on it.
Okay,
just work on it.
Right.
One of these days we may bring it up. I would like to hear that.
I say Tony does the hot so well, and sometimes I catch myself talking like Hot Rod. Just
the stories.
Talk about it, right? Yeah, the stories. Just you have to say it in hot, Frank Layden kind of lingo.
Yes,
because they had such iconic voices, and the way they paced it, it was just, I miss Frank, miss Hotz. Man, they were just icons, and we're such a huge part of the Jazz. Just a huge part.
Oh, I love it, man, and love checking in with the Jazz all the time. So that's why I love we have you on today. Look, you've gone through so many different chapters of Jazz basketball. Take me through kind of your thoughts now to go through what the previous years have been now with a clear direction on winning moving forward. We all get how the NBA works. Nobody's lost on what's happened the last few years. But now with this upward, forward expectation, does it kind of remind you a bit of, I guess, year one of Quinn Snyder? Was that the last time that we were in this spot coming out of losing years and then into something that you were looking forward to?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I mean, Quinn did great things in his 8 years, and it kind of reminds me of a little bit after Boozer and D. Will, and then Hayward departs. I tell you, the last 5 years. So let's be honest. COVID was really the start of just kind of a hellish time. The Jazz make a big decision to go ahead and move on from Rudy and Donovan and Quinn, and the next thing you know is this is truly what would be a redo, however you want to describe it or punctuate it. But I'd say the last two seasons, 17 wins, 22. Let's be honest, that's not easy to do. And Tony, we're in the business, of calling games and entertaining and trying to be up front for what's the fans are seeing the same thing I am, right? And I think the beauty of last year, I've always been impressed with the way that the players, given the minutes, still went out and busted their tails to compete. Look, it's not easy in this league to make a roster. It's even harder to stay on one. And the Jazz, I think, went through that process of letting these players decide who can play and who can't. And we saw a lot of growth. We saw some guys step back. We saw them move forward again. So I can't wait for this season to start because there is hype. There is talent on paper and on the floor. And I just want to see what Will Hardy does as he massages a 9 or 10-man rotation. What will that be? And, we always ask a coach, hey, who's going to start? Well, he says, it matters to me who finishes. And, you hear that a lot. And that's probably true. Who's he going to trust in those final 3 minutes of a fourth quarter? Or if you're going to stay with a guy that's on a heater, he's on a run, Sensabaugh. We saw him several times last year just get on it. And I'm anxious to see what Key and Darren Peterson are all about in the backcourt. And, Walker's not here, and I thought he would be, honestly. But now it's big man by committee. And, how does that pan out? For me, it's one of the most intriguing storylines, I think, of camp is just how this is all going to work out and how Will wants to play it. But, man, he has options for the first time. You guys, this is his 5th season. And it's really the first time he's been able to say, go coach.
Right.
And yeah, he's going to develop players, but he's actually going to have a chance to coach and thinking about truly winning games in critical crunch time situations. And to me, I think that's one of the most intriguing, storylines as well is Will Hardy and what did he actually do with this team? And that to me, I can't wait to see how it all works out because I tell you, the clock's ticking. I mean, we play the Nuggets in Boulder. What is it, like the 4th of September? And here it is, the 20th of October. It's the 20th of August. Camp media day is about a month, 5 weeks out, and before you know it, it's back on the floor. So, Jazz fans have been patient, and it's time to deliver. And I think the buildup is there. And I will say this, Tony and Porter. I think the Jazz could be one of the biggest surprise storylines of the NBA. I know that's pressure, but I just think there's that possibility of that happening.
Let's expand. Yeah. Let's expand on that last part you made a little bit, Bowler, where we'll get into the starting 5 and what you expect from the rookies and the roster as a whole. But I love that you mentioned Will Hardy and his now, I guess, freedom to coach at a level that we can actually assess. We can actually look on the paper and look at the results and give a fair and honest judgment of Will Hardy, the head coach. Because to be quite frank, and I think it's part of the job assignment, it's something he's understood, it's something that fans, for the most part, have understood. Switching management and ownership, they understand the place that they're in as far as, I'll say, angling for the draft and whatnot. This is probably the first, and even this year, you may tamper the expectations a little bit, but this is the first time we get to see Will Hardy, I think, with a little bit more freedom to go out and just try to win some basketball games and really imprint his fingerprint onto this organization and onto this rotation. What are your expectations, and what are some of the things you're maybe looking at, right? You're sitting there during a TV timeout, Bowler, and you're looking towards the huddle to see what Will Hardy's doing. What are you expecting maybe a little bit different to see from a coach with, I guess, the handcuffs let off a little bit?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I've always seen him with the tenacity. I think he'll probably be heavily coaching and conversing with two guards, one being Darren Peterson and the other one Keontae, because really, as we all know in this league, the tone you set in the backcourt and the pace you set is so important. And I think that Will actually has the ability to play both guys in different positions, on ball, off guard. And also he's got, if the roster still, if the front office has Isaiah Collier, we know how he has a motor, and that he can interchange some pieces here. You talk about starting five. Who knows? I mean, is Ace Bailey a sixth man? Is he a starter? I doubt you're going to let Darren Peterson come off the bench. He's the number 2 pick, but then again, Ace is number 5. I think the other part of it is balance for me, is how does he rotate his second group, and how does that all play out? Look, every game poses different challenges, and some guys come out hot, some guys come out cold. Some guys don't match up well. They're playing a smaller team. The Jazz have the opportunity to really dominate, with size, if they want to. And they can also play a little smaller ball. They can play half court, full court. A lot of teams can't do that. But the bottom line is what he has preached since day one. You want to play in the NBA, you better play defense. And if you don't, you're not playing. You're not making this squad. You're not making this roster. And I still think that's going to be the biggest development challenge for the Jazz still. You look at the last 3 champions. You start with Boston, then you go to Oklahoma City, and then you finish up with the New York Knicks. And what do they all have in common? Tenacity. There is one person like a SGA or Jalen Brunson that just has the ability to lead by example. And I'm still waiting to see who that player is. Now, did Keontae make a jump forward? Absolutely. Will he continue? You hope. But where does Mark get in? We haven't seen much of him because, again, of the rebuild. How does he fall into this, and Nurkic, and where does how quickly does Darren Peterson guys develop too? But I think, going back to your original question, I think Will just has options, which he hasn't had. And he was told to basically, let's develop and let's, put these guys on the floor and let's judge who can and who can't be on this team in the future. And now he gets to coach. And I know he's excited about that. There's no doubt. And the fans, we'll see it for ourselves. Year 5 it's been a long 5 years, going on 5. And it's time to see what they can do and how he handles situations. And just how deep this team is another part of my wonderment, is how deep he can actually go and how many guys can actually play in tough situations. They have the experience and the minutes from last year and the year before. Now it's really time when you're saying, let's go win, and it means something.
This is going to be, and I like that you point out, this is Will Hardy's first chance to just go coach, right? Where he can now, and this is why I love that 6-year extension. I said that was the first absolute best move that has been made in this entire process, because he was put in a spot where what do you really want him to do? He was actually overperforming with a roster that you were hoping was going to lose. And now, right? So, go ahead.
They had to pull the reins back.
Yeah,
they had to pull the reins back on him twice, right?
You're too good.
Hey. Yeah.
So, in my opinion, what I think is going to be most interesting is finding out who can contribute, because you talked about some guys who flourished, and they did. But now, to me, one of the biggest themes for 26-27 is contribution is not an indication of commitment. And in my opinion, the previous Jazz few years here, you could hide your lack of commitment to the things that really matter because you could contribute. Because all players were aware and all people were aware of the situation. So I remember this was Enes Kanter's challenge from the end of Ty Corbin into Quinn Snyder, was because Enes Kanter wanted to reveal that, see, I'm contributing, therefore that doesn't show my lack of commitment. Quinn Snyder called it out. Next thing you know, Rudy Gobert's, getting more minutes, and Quinn Snyder's headed for Oklahoma City. And so, in my opinion, like in your opinion, though, as you look at this, how much of this next year is really going to be finding out who should no longer be on the bus now that there's going to be a straight line drawn in the sand?
Yeah, no, that's probably the next step in this whole equation, is finalizing the roster and really giving players the test of, do you accept your role? We gave you minutes. Now we may need you sporadically. How about Steve Mikhailuk? The guy was ready every time Will Hardy called his name last year. He can knock down the three. Can he defend better? We'll see. Sensabaugh, three-point shooter, terrific guy, but also at the same time, can you give me defensive minutes that I need and shut down a wing defender? How about a Blake Henson, by the way? Is he an outsider that can contribute and maybe is a surprise? He's a rough, tumble guy, great NBA body at 6'8" and about 240. Filipowski. I could just keep going through these names that we go. There were some wow moments. You guys would probably both agree, right? There were some like, whoa, wow. Is that going to be commonplace? Look, every player has an off night, but consistency is the key. And that's what the Jazz are looking for. Can you deliver in those difficult times? Can you beat a guy off the dribble? Can you give up the three for a better shot to your teammate? All those things come into play when they make these tough decisions on filling out a roster. And to me, out of my pay scale, man, but look, Austin and Danny and Justin Zanuck, they've been running the show. And so far, the Triple J trade, we kind of oversaw that. We only saw him 3 games, before they decided to shut him down, and had the knee procedure done. But, man, I can't wait to see a Jazz team full force, full speed, healthy, and deep. It's been a long time. And like I said, T and I talk all the time. And, a year ago, 2 years ago, 17 wins. Last year, you get 22. That equals 39. I'm guessing the Jazz can do better than that and maybe even, knock on the door, play in. That would take this city – by storm again, to see some postseason basketball at the Delta Center. But again, you have to kind of just, say, okay, let's wait and see. But I'm looking at the schedule. You open in Memphis, and then you come back and you have a nice stretch at home where you've got New Orleans, Lakers, Memphis, San Antonio, and Portland, and then you hit the road for 4. If you can get off to a nice start, but look, there's going to be a dip, just because of the newness and the rookie and just everybody getting used to playing with one another. But I still think this team has enough minutes under their belt that I don't think anything is going to surprise them. I don't think there's a lot of like, wow, I didn't expect that, because they've been through a lot. I'll tell you, these last 3 years, wow. If you haven't gotten tougher mentally, then you don't belong. And that's kind of, I think, where the Jazz think as well. These guys have NBA minutes. They've played against some of the best players in the league, in the world, and now it's time to go out and do your thing. And I keep saying it, but I can't wait. This team on the floor.
Yeah. Speaking of on the floor, and we won't hold you to it as a employee of the team, I am curious what your read is on what we may see minute one of the 2026 NBA season with the Jazz at tip-off. I think we kind of know what 8 or 9, maybe 10 guys Will Hardy is going to give minutes to, but exactly what that looks like and what the rotation looks like, I think is still very much up in the air. Both Nurkic and Keontae give you offensive skills that sometimes look really good with the second unit, which is intriguing to me. I think you have kind of an interesting front court dilemma where you've got the guys, but they kind of have funny power forward center roles that don't necessarily mix together perfectly. I wonder what you see as the starting five, if you can, and what that actually looks like on day one, and how much maybe you believe Will Hardy may play with that and adjust that, probably matchup dependent.
Your last question I'll answer first. I think it's totally undecided, and this camp will decide a lot. Now, there's some guys plugged in. We know Triple J and Markkanen are there, all right? I mean, I think that's just a given. He has potential at the guard line in multiple ways. You can go really big with Darren Peterson and Ace Bailey 1-2. You can interchange, obviously, Keontae at 1-2 as well. You move on, you can move Ace down into the 3 spot if you have to. But then, Markkanen and Jokic and then Triple J. So, nothing's been written in ink. I guarantee you that. But I think on some given nights, you may see a different lineup. Look, I know a lot of players like to know exactly what their role is every night, and I'm a starter. I've talked to many players who say, look, that's who I am. I'm a starter. But, I think in the world we live in today, a lot of players play multiple positions, and the old days of 1 through 5 have kind of gone away, and so you're just a basketball player that where you're needed, you play, and they'll take those minutes, right? But I think that, to me, again, is the unproven right now is where do you play 2 top 5 picks in Peterson and Ace? Are one of those players early in the season, are they a 6-man? I don't know. Possibility, yes. Does Keontae, after the work and the abilities that he has shown as a leader and the way that he kind of really elevated himself personally, do you keep him on the floor to lead the way, or is he going to play some 6-man minutes as well? I don't know, but it's intriguing, right? And I think the options are limitless on what the Jazz can do. And I think they would tell us that's a good thing to have options instead of just being corralled and just having, well, we've only got these 5 that we really trust. In reality, Will may go as deep as 7 into starting rotations on nights that he thinks they're smaller or bigger. And these players will have to be, I think, set down and discussed and talked to, because I think the most important part of any championship or team on the rise, everyone has to know what their role is. And all I can say is it happens in Oklahoma City. They know it in Denver. They knew it in Boston before Jaylen Brown's departure to Philadelphia, and they know it in New York. So that's the key. Can they really play as close as we thought they were as a unit last year? How much hooping and hollering did we watch them last year? Man, that team was tight. How tight will they be if they may not agree with the position they're going to be put at or the minutes they get? That, to me, I think is going to be, again, another storyline.
It will. The good part for Will Hardy is that he's got this rotation to play with and he's got the freedom to do it. The bad part about that is that it's a good problem to have. That's a tough job to work so many new faces and also some existing guys who have established themselves here into a rotation that they might not be used to and might not be comfortable with yet. That's just part of the gig as an NBA head coach. That's why they get paid the big bucks.
And Porter, I've done like over 320 some odd, pre-game coaches shows with Will Hardy, and we always have a chance to talk before and after. Look, I mean, I personally think he's the real deal. And the one positive about Will Tony, too, is that his communication ability is more old school mixed with new, if that makes sense. Look, he came from the Popovich era, but he was very young and he understood. He was the guy that kind of delivered the message to the young players from Pop. And I think he understood how to do that by still staying connected and not losing that player. And I think that's going to be the biggest attribute that Will gives probably this year by just delivering the message of what the Jazz will do, want to do, and how you fit into our plans. And that's then left up to the player to think, okay, I'm on board. And I think Will has that ability to let them understand that. They may not be happy, but I still think they'll be a part of what the journey is. Does that make sense?
The trust will be there.
In this league today, players will say, nope, can't do it, not going to do it. And we see guys jump and go all the time. But there's something here that the Jazz have grown together over the last 3 seasons, especially, where they say we're in it together. Oh, let's see if that holds true, because I think Will Hardy is a big part of that. He always says it's not my team, it's theirs.
Well,
I coach them.
Yeah. And I watched Coach Morrison and Woj with the Stars. And I understand that that's the G League, not the NBA. I watched them be a great extension of him and watched that work. And I was so impressed with what the team was early part of the year, worst with giving up points in the paint, worst in pick and roll defense. I mean, worst at this and that. And then you would watch a methodical and then large-scale jump on how they would make big improvements because he could keep the locker room together because the players really trusted him. He was honest. They were both honest with them, and they also had this great amount of trust. And every player I spoke to, because they would also be connected to Will Hardy, they said they were amazed about his ability to win with trust-based influence and to connect and reach a player in a very deep way. And I thought, well, that's great. You know, this is a unique era of Jazz basketball, but that part of Will, I think, will always be in place. That's why I was a huge fan of his extension. And now that he gets a chance to do that with winning going forward, not just, you know, trying to figure out draft positioning and development, I think that's going to be nothing but a great thing for the Jazz.
Bowler, on your way out, maybe give us a little preview of what a game day with Bowler and Big T looks like this year, and if any changes or if we're just running it back.
Yeah, no, we're having our broadcast retreat in a couple of weeks. Want to stay obviously in tune with the players. Media days are obviously uber important, where you continue to grow our relationship with them. Basically, trust, hard to do in the world we live in today. But, you know, you want to be able to walk up and get information that we can share with the public. Love working with Thurl and Lauren. This is going to be she's a vet now, year 3, and Thurl and I have been together. I think this is year 7. So we have fun, and I think it even gets more fun as this team grows. Has it been a challenge? Absolutely. Is it tough to call wins of 17 and 22? Absolutely. But we try to stay straight on board with what the fans see and the development of where the Jazz have been. Now we get into a whole new area where you can go out and just let them play. It's like opening the gate. Is that when they run the Bulls of Pamplona? Is that what it is, Tony?
Oh, yes. The running of the bull.
Open the gate. Let them open the gates, man. And let them go. And, get out of the way if you're the Lakers or the Mavericks or whomever. But, I can't overstate it, that everyone I talk to, every Jazz fan I run across, is that the anticipation is there. You know why? Because they watched it themselves.
Right.
And you have to applaud Delta Center being packed on most nights just to see them for themselves who these players are and the development they went through, because now they're ready to ride. They're ready to open the gate and let it happen. And Big T and I just look at it. We are along for that ride. We try to make it fun. I love the big play. And then, Tony, you know this. When you call games, the unexpected is the moment you live for. And you know what? We're going to have a lot of those this year.
I love
7 years with Big T, huh?
Mm. Can't believe it's been that many.
With me.
Yeah.
What's Matt Harpering? What's Matt Harpering up to?
Haven't talked to Maddie in a long time. I know his kids. He's got Luke down now at Florida, tight end. He went through the portal. And Katie, I believe, is at North Carolina. She was the most highly recruited high school athlete in the country.
Wow. All right.
So, and then he's got 3 more, and they're all in that junior high school range. So,
he played football, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, Luke started at Georgia Tech where Maddie was, and then decided, as again, not enough playing time. The portal is there for those type of reasons. So let's see if he can't find and put a toehold with the Gators and get some more playing time. Talented kid, a multi athlete, but football was his thing, and I'm excited to see. His dad was a pretty doggone good football player himself, and then took basketball and didn't do too bad there either. So, I'm excited for Luke and Katie to see if they can't put the Harpering name up there in lights again.
Bowler, we appreciate your time as always. We've blown through the clock, so we'll let you go, let you get back to it, and appreciate your time. We'll chat soon. Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, partner. See you, man.
Craig Bowler Jack, the voice of the Utah Jazz at Buckle Up Bowler, brought to you today by IFA. What do you know? It's time to start thinking football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of the year. Now it's time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA's Step 3 for the weeks ahead. When the weather's still hot, but the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, their fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting IFA, helping to grow the things you love. One of several Utah stores today, or, of course, at ifa.coop. Back on the other side, we'll continue the conversation, Tony Parks and I, maybe talking a little college football, a little NBA. We still got some PGA Tour action to give you updates on. We'll get the latest in the baseball world with TP and go from there. Hey, help Utah kids start school with confidence. Over 200 kids at the Utah Road Home need your help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or appletreeforkids.com for more information and to donate now. That's ESPN700sports.com or appletreeforkids.com. Back on the other side, the drive continues. I am Porter Larson. That is Tony Parks filling in for Spence on this Thursday on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back. It is drive time. Thursday afternoon here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. As you are used to with a day in which I take over the air chair and Spence is out, a little more twang on the show today. George Strait.
All about it.
Bringing us back in. A little right or wrong. I like me some George, but this one's really for my friend Tony Parkson.
Yes. And I love that you do that. It's a great time, man. I love any time you put on his tunes, you feel good. Even some of his downer songs, man. They're just so well written.
To be clear, that's a lot of George Strait songs are about, let's say, an ex, a past partner, missing a rodeo, one of the above.
Or missing the love of your life to go to the rodeo. There's that too.
Can still make Cheyenne.
Yeah, it just leaves the phone on the but I okay, very quickly, because now, as we've talked about this, the song Choosing Texas, and Ella just nailed it, and it was awesome, and I love it. And because that song reminds me of 80s, 90s country.
Oh, 100%.
Like, it totally makes me feel like that. I always thought 80s, 90s was the best because it told a story. It had a good melody. It had a great sound, feel. There was amazing talent. The depth of female talent was tremendous. The depth of male artists was tremendous. And I was trying to be like, okay, did I just grow up with this? Am I becoming the old man that's critical now of the new stuff? I'm not trying to be that way, but I'm trying to be like, this was the best era when you talk about the volume. So you, I think, could be a good barometer for this. You're a country music junkie. You go way back, deeper than I do, in terms of the golden oldies, if you will.
Right.
So is this me just growing up with it and being attached to it? Or is there some truth to 80s, 90s country was the best in terms of the overall product?
I'll tell you what. I think it's a little bit of both. I think, 20, 30 years into country music going mainstream, it got to a point where there was, as you mentioned, just so many really good artists, right? You talk about the George Straits, the Toby Keiths, you mentioned
Alan
all
Jackson. My goodness, man.
And not only did it get to a point where there's so many of them, there was a concerted effort out of Nashville and otherwise to focus on country music, right? And in addition to that, there was a collection of artists who knew how to very much toe the line on being marketable, being, not going so far in one way where they're alienating people or they're, not getting their message across. I think in some forms of country music, especially very oldies, you don't necessarily have stuff that's relatable to like a everyday suburb fella, right?
Okay.
And I think that is why you're seeing a resurgence of 90s type style country today, because you're not just trying to get Farmer Tim out in the country to listen to your album. You want all those people in Cottonwood Heights and in Sandy and in Taylorsville to listen to your album too.
It was awesome.
And that's when my type of country is a little more country and Western. And I don't think that necessarily applies to a lot of those folks. It's not as quick. It's not as fast-paced. It's not as melodic. It's an old guy sitting on a stool with a guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be a little monotonous for your listener who's just driving, making their commute, and they want a good melody. They want something they can sing along to. They want, someone singing about their ex-girlfriend because they relate to it. It's a little different when you're Johnny Cash and you're singing about being high on pills and crashing a car, right? Not everyone relates to that. So I think there's a point where you can gain marketability combining it with just good, wholesome music.
Yeah.
And I think that, yes, 90s country hit that nail on the head.
And the writing was unbeatable.
They're trying it in some forms today. I think you bringing up Ella Langley's a good one because that song is awesome. It's well done. It's well produced. It's well written. Taylor Swift, I think, kind of hit that section very well as well. She got more into pop as well. But, no, there's something to that because, like I said, yes, when you ask me, it's Merle Haggard. It's Buck Owens. It's Marty Robbins.
Right.
I understand that. Yes, that is the best era of country music. I will have no arguments there.
Oh, okay.
But
all right.
But I understand why the popularity and the complete mainstream version of country music kind of hit the masses a little bit more.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay. All right. I love it. I'm just glad to have good music back. I'm not trying to like bag on the recent decades of country music.
You can.
But I've had to be very selective on that song here, that song there. But the overall thing, I'm like, what
yeah. No, you can bag on. There were.
It's not.
There's always someone making good country music. Let's be clear.
Yes.
Like you go back 5-6 years ago, there's guys putting out good albums. Tyler Childers and Sturgill Simpson and Coulter Wall, and there's guys putting out good music. But you just had to look for it a little bit more.
Sure.
In 2005, in 2010, 2015. And I think now we're getting back to a little bit of it, but the stuff that seems to go mainstream now, a little bit more pop, a little bit more, I think, overproduced. And,
I don't think the writing has been great.
No.
I think it's lacked authenticity. Anyway, just like that's
part of it, too, authenticity. George Strait was a rodeo guy. He was a team roper. He lived that part of it, right? The actual countryside of it. It's hard for me to listen sometimes to current artists that you can tell just they may be reading or singing a song that someone else wrote for them, and you can tell that they've never kind of lived that part of it, and it comes through in their music.
Yes,
and I think that's a part of it as well, as the authenticity.
Yep.
Chris Ledoux was out riding bulls and rodeo, and George Strait was doing the same. They understand what they're singing about. If you don't, I think it comes through in your music, and that's part of the disconnect that I think we saw with like the Nashville radio country of the last decade or so.
Oh, I think that's fair. I thought you'd be the best guy to answer that. I really did. I thought you had the best pulse on it. So, okay. There it is.
Text
answer.
in. Tony Parks wants to know. Best era of country music.
Dude. It was so good. Reba McEntire.
Oh,
Tanya
Reba
Tucker.
rocks.
The Judds. I mean, oh my gosh.
We'll go decades. What's your favorite decade?
I'd probably have to
of
say
country
90s.
music?
I'd probably have to say 90s. Yeah. Because I still had so much of the 80s coming in that I liked, and those they were really accelerating into the 90s. I'm from Jackson to Ledoux to Keith to, I mean, I could go off. I mean, Garth Brooks that's as hot as any artist has ever been. Maybe not as long as somebody like Taylor Swift, or as many decades as somebody like as many years as somebody like a Michael Jackson. But if you look at just like how big the craze was for Garth Brooks for that window of time, it was insane. 2 regrets I'll ever have. Never saw him in concert, never saw Michael Jordan play. Those are the 2 regrets I'll ever have. Yeah.
Okay.
We couldn't afford tickets, dude.
We
just couldn't. I was a kid, and I just couldn't. I mean, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So it just was one of those things I always wish I could have done. Never saw Michael Jordan play in person. Never saw Garth Brooks in concert. And just,
Hey, Garth's still around.
I know.
You can still make that one
I'm talking, you know what I mean? Like in that era.
Yeah.
That was as big as anything. Garth was such a big deal, man.
I think he did a stadium at Rice Eccles, right?
Yeah.
Not so long ago.
Yep.
You should have gone.
But when he did, I was probably out of town. I don't know. Anyway, that to me, it was 90s. There was nothing like it. I mean, there were songs that wouldn't even make the top 100 that I thought were just awesome. Just really awesome. Sawyer Brown, who is not even in the others receiving votes in that decade, was just awesome.
Darren Swan, thanks for texting in. He says, am I allowed to say 70s through 90s? You're allowed to.
Yeah. Sure.
You're not picking like one era, because that's very much
pretty
you
wide.
go from like the 70s country, which was Merle and Willie and Waylon,
Charlie Pride,
right? Loretta Lynn. You go down the list. You go into the 80s, and there's a lot of good artists in the 80s that kind of reached mainstream in the 90s.
Alabama.
I think that if you're saying 70s through 90s, you are bridging the gap between 2 very different eras in country music, Darren. but I'll say you're allowed to.
Oh, you're definitely allowed.
I'm not making the rules. I might say 40s, and people are like, "What?" Hank Sr.
Yeah.
A little Tex Ritter for you. Woody Guthrie. I think that around World War II and whatnot, there was some really, really good country and Western music. The 50s were all obviously awesome with Johnny and co.
Totally honest with you, you usually lose me during those. You'll rattle off some names. I'm like, oh, I've heard that name. Then you'll rattle off some names. I'm like, what? I would not have known if he played for the Washington Senators or if he was a country music artist.
That's fair. I mean, let's be clear. You were not alive during the 40s.
Your library and your depth of country music knowledge is the deepest and the best I've ever known. Hands down.
I'm lucky enough I've had some connections in that world. They always tell you, Tony, not to meet your heroes, right? That's a phrase that I've heard a lot in my life. And I think in some cases that's very much a good lesson maybe to have, because I think that I have met athletes, I've met entertainers that are less than welcoming, but I met Willie Nelson, I met Allen Iverson, and growing up, like those were my guys, right?
Was this at the same event?
No,
was this
Willie
same activity?
Willie and Allen Iverson were not at the same event. Just to be clear, Allen Iverson was at NBA All-Star here in Salt Lake.
Yep.
And I actually literally just ran into him walking down the street. And we had a conversation. I was like, dude, I grew up wearing Iverson Reeboks, the sleeve, the headband. Mm-hmm. My mom didn't let me do the cornrows, but like
I would have.
I was all in.
Yeah.
Just to make you aware, you're in Philadelphia and you're getting a little kid in rural Utah basically copying everything you're doing, just so you have an idea of the impact you had. And he thought that was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Willie, I actually met at Merle Haggard's memorial show. Very cool. A big thanks to a close friend who introduced me to Willie, and very cool. Both of them were like really generous with their time. They weren't like, a lot of times you meet a celebrity and whether they're busy or not, they're like ready to move on. They're ready to not be talking to a fan anymore, right? Neither one of them were like that at all. Maybe don't meet your heroes unless they're Willie and Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Bubba Chuck was awesome, and Willie was super, super cool guy.
So I never met Walter Payton, obviously, but I did meet Juwan Howard.
There you go.
Yeah.
As a Michigan man.
When I can tell you there's not a believer out there who was a bigger fan of Justin Bieber than I was of the Fab Five. I can say the obsession was insane. I mean, I was 8 and 9 years old. I mean, I was so crazy about that group and everything. It was so incredible. I remember it so well. And Juwan was my favorite out of the five. And, you know, his story was unique and interesting. And I had a chance to meet him when the Heat were in town and everybody was talking to LeBron and Dwayne. And we had it covered wall to wall. But one of the things I wanted to do was get his take on how the Fab Five, how unique, how different it was being with the big three in the Heat, as well as the Fab Five. Like, what were the experiences? It was awesome hearing him talk about it, and you know how he didn't realize back then just how big a deal it was. You know, you're in the moment. And then Steve Fisher was in town with San Diego State like a day before that, and so I got his take on it. It was just fun, man. But Juwan was really great. I remember that and connecting well with him, and we revisited different games. That was cool. This wasn't a hero necessarily, but Carl Edwards Jr., who was a part of the 16 Cubs team.
I thought you were talking NASCAR.
No. But he was a part of that team. There was a writer who was coming into Sacramento, flying in, wanted to meet with him and talk about the 2016 Cubs. And we're like, okay. And I was in charge of like helping set up everything for Carl. And anyway, long story short, this guy's flight runs late. Car rental line's too long. I mean, every domino falling that you could imagine. And I'm thinking, you know what? Might have to do this tomorrow. Carl, I'm so sorry. You know, and he's like, no. I want to talk to him. I want to talk to him. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. And he goes, I want you in the room though. I was like, oh, okay, I will be, just to make sure everything goes smooth. We're in Sacramento and we go into this private room and Carl would not let that interview end. It was incredible. He was standing up, reenacting stuff. He was so excited to talk about that World Series championship. And I thought to myself, you know, it's amazing. Every fan would like to believe that their favorite team who had key players or whatever, that it meant as much to them as it did to the fan. It's just not always the case. So I was kind of ready for CJ to be like, hey, that was a part of my career. It's in the past. And sure, this was nice. And I thought he might say some nice things. I mean, I have never seen anybody so excited to talk about an experience. And he talked about it as if he was one of the fans. To me, that was a pretty cool thing to see. He would not let the interview end. I mean, it was incredible. And it was fun to just sit in that room, be a fly on the wall, and hear him tell the whole. I mean, it went on for 2.5 hours.
That's great.
And the guy was late. And he was like, that's fine. I'll wait. I'll readjust this. I'll do that. And I'm like, dude, you're not normal, man. What's going on? I mean, but like, that was like a neat experience, I thought, is to see something like that. Very cool.
Very cool. Again, text in. Tony and I want to know your country music favorite era, but probably decade. And we'll continue to debate that now that we took an entire segment of the show to do so.
I did not know that's where it was going to go.
On the next segment of the show, we will, since you brought up the Michigan stuff, Mr. Michigan Man, Mr. Blue, Freddie Whittingham's being sued by the University of Utah. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit more college football and maybe actually football.
Yeah, let's talk actual football on the other side.
Because we do have Sports Court coming up in the show a little bit later on. We'll get to some of the legalities of the football world with our friends at Handy and Handy Law Firm. But we'll talk a little actual football with Tony Parks on the other side. This is The Drive. I am Porter Larson, TP filling in with me while Spence is out on this Thursday and Friday. Remember Camp Scally, well underway for Utah football. For the best coverage of Utes fall camp, keep it tuned to Sean O'Connell and The Drive every day, or visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally brought to you by CenXL, JBR Clinical Research, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Big O Tires, Sound Warehouse, and your Utah Toyota dealers right here on your home of the Utes for 75 years. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The Drive rolls along on a Thursday afternoon. Porter Larson, Tony Parks filling in for Spence. We'll be back with you tomorrow on the show as well. Well, Chris Ledoux. That's for our guy Darren.
There you go, Darren.
Texter. His favorite. Little Cadillac Cowboy. Little Salt Lake reference in there for you. Go listen to some Chris Ledoux on your Thursday after you hang up ESPN 700 later on this afternoon. We were talking in the previous segment about our Michigan man in there. He is Tony Parks. And we'll be quick on this because we'll get back to it on the sports court segment today. The University of Utah is suing Whittingham, not Kyle, but Freddie Whittingham for breach of contract and some compensatory damages as well for recruiting players while he was still an employee at Utah and otherwise. This is an interesting one because they're not suing Kyle or Jason or Lewis Powell or other guys that left. Apparently, this is part of Freddie being under contract and then not going through the correct processes. He didn't alert them in writing. He didn't do all of the above, in which I guess you probably, if you're Freddie, maybe you just assumed, I'm going with Kyle.
I'm not the big name anyway.
I'm going with Kyle.
Yeah.
You guys understand what's happening here. But no, Utah is going after him for the tune of $500,000 for the contract breach and $1 million for other damages. We got to see Michigan and Utah play a football game.
Yeah, I'm
That's where this story ends, right?
Yeah, I would love to sit here and be like, now here's how it works with employers. I have no idea.
We'll do that at 4:30. We'll do that at 4:30.
You know, the one, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Most times when it comes to the lawyer stuff and sports and people are like, what do you think about this? I'm like Mr. Hand after Jeff Spicoli goes, I don't know. And he just starts banging his chalk on the chalkboard. I don't know. I usually don't know. I would have no idea how to even get into it. Did he recruit players? Did he not? I just am a guy who hopes that justice is usually served. That's what I'd like to see. I'm amazed at the misconceptions of Kyle Whittingham. I'm shocked. We had a pretty good gauge on who he is as a coach, right? Discipline, toughness, this, that, the other. Criticisms were there. It's not like he rolled out 5 different top-level quarterbacks. I mean, there was always how are you going to get around this quarterback here and minimize damage and, protect the football, field position, win in the trenches, win the game, whatever.
No question about him on the field.
Right. So then what I'm shocked at is, like you'll have Detroit Sports Radio going, this guy's a gauze pad. He's just there to help, straighten things out after the disaster of Sharon Moore. And I'm like, no, this guy can coach. This guy can coach, really well. And that Coach Beck guy is, really good. And Jay Hill took a team that had no business winning 5 games in FCS and turned them into a national championship contender. I get FCS isn't the same thing. My point is culture, fundamentals, development, all those things. BYU last year, amazing with takeaways. BYU defense, not really known for having great defensive backs over all these decades, and now they were pretty dang good in a lot of areas, right? Like Jay Hill, you're going to get the most out of what you've got. So they've always got a lot out of any place they've been. Now they get more than they've ever had, and they get to implement the same things. Now, I'm not saying it's the same thing. It's a guarantee that they're going to go out there and have a great year. I picked them to win 10 games. I think they're going to be great. I think they have a ton of talent, breath, fresh air. Guys that really embody what Kyle and Jay are all about are going to really embrace everything that is football there. They win trust of players, but they also galvanize guys. They came from the urban experience, and they're as polished. And so I think that is really, really neat. I'm shocked to hear people call Kyle a quarterback guru. I'm shocked to hear some people talk about him as a gauze pad. And that, to me, it's really eye-opening because when Kyle was doing what he was doing here, we had a pretty good gauge or a pretty big belief that people nationally, sure, they respected him, but did they really understand him? The answer to that's no. And I think a lot of the Detroit sports market and the entire state of Michigan and the Big Ten, I think they're actually in for one heck of a surprise. You think Curt Cignetti is all that different from Kyle Whittingham? The answer is no, folks. There's a lot of the similarity there. And Kyle, like, he's not just rigid, tough, and we're going to do it my way. No, Kyle is one of the best I've ever seen. Problem solving, identifying who is who, being able to decipher who's committed and not, being able to identify what's working and what's not immediately, by the way. Oh, special teams? Look at the depth of special teams coaches you have. Kyle, Jay Hill, all that. I mean, the little things, they're all over it. The big things, they're all over it. Talent, they've got it. Resources, money, yeah. That doesn't guarantee they're going to win the Big Ten. My point is they're going to be as fundamental as any team. They're going to be as physical as any team. And they're going to compete really, really well and have a great year. But there's this idea Kyle doesn't understand the Ohio State rivalry. Huh? Because he doesn't come up there and act like a WWE character and fake this hatred.
He's
funny. Not a phony, guys.
It's funny you mentioned the misconceptions of Kyle at Michigan. I'm also seeing a lot of the reverse here at home, where now that Kyle isn't in red, now that he isn't in crimson, the same things that a lot of fans absolutely loved for 20, 25 years, they are despising him for now, right? The exact thing he did when he spurned BYU and when BYU wronged his father, when that became a rivalry and Kyle now said they're the enemy, right? And you loved that about Kyle. Well, let me be clear. He wanted to stay at Utah and coach at Utah. I know the coach and waiting stuff got messy, and I know that there's, back and forth there, and he didn't handle it super cleanly. But he didn't want to leave. And when he got essentially helped out the door, and he's not done being a competitor, of which he is an elite form of, he's going to go and try to win, and he's going to do it with the people he knows and the people that are around him.
Right.
He's not intentionally trying to put your program in a bad position. He's just going to go try to win.
It's just self-interest.
And when that self-interest turns on you, it's interesting to see fans who 2 years ago were saying build the statue now are like, don't say his name, right? And I think that both sides are misconceptions of just not knowing a guy who probably for the worst publicly is very terse. I don't mean that as a bad thing. He's just very short, very all business.
Tells the truth, but also isn't going to like sugarcoat or cater things to your feelings. And if that's not on your team, it can come off as something that you're just not on board with. Right.
And it's interesting to see both Big Ten fans start to learn it and us seeing it from a different perspective, but also now fans in this market who've been here for 20 years for the very first time in a decade, 2 decades, seeing Kyle in a different light because they're on the other side.
Yeah.
I hope that as the years go on, people can look back and be like, okay, I reacted to that a bit emotionally. I appreciate what Kyle did the last 2 weeks, month of his tenure, which, to be clear, is way more about the relationship with Kyle and the administration than it is with Kyle and the University of Utah community. I've spoken with Kyle since he's been in Ann Arbor. He has nothing but love for Salt Lake City and the broader Utes community. There was just some stuff behind the scenes on a professional level that was not going to work. Let's be very clear. We're seeing shades of that in Provo a little bit now. And it's just interesting to see from different perspectives how people are viewed. And now Kyle being in one of the top jobs in the country is the focus of it from all sorts of different directions. He's taken arrows from everybody. And it's interesting to see. Now, on the home front, I am really excited because, Tony, we are 2 weeks from kickoff. Man. We are 14 days away from kickoff, where Morgan Scalley, whether you think it's his time or not,
I do.
It is literally his time in 2 weeks. And he gets to show what he's made of against Idaho, against Arkansas. We can go down the schedule, and we will. and we can put all this behind us.
Yeah.
We can talk about it. We can hope for a Michigan-Utah matchup. We can hope for BYU and Utah to meet in the Big 12 title. We can do all of that, but we can actually get to football. And for me, it's really exciting because we got a team in Provo, a team in Salt Lake City that are going to be really good. And I think a team in Lubbock who people are a little too high on after what was a really good year, they're losing a lot. I think the Big 12 is wide open. And if you go and contend and play in a Big 12 championship game, Tony, we're in an era of college football where just getting to that, literally getting to the Big 12 championship means you've put yourself in the playoff. Because if you win, you advance. I know it's not technically the playoff.
Well, it's an elimination game.
But it is an elimination game. You're essentially in the play-in of the college football playoff. And it's a realistic goal in 2026 for both Division I teams in this market. And the other team is head by Bronco Mendenhall, who's now in the Pac-12. It's just, there's so much that we could get to and so much to be excited about. The storylines that are not in the courtroom, that are not in the C-suites, that are not in the AD's office and the private equity firm office on the field.
I'm going to be on the mic for the Utah-Idaho game. And I cannot...
At the stadium.
Yeah, at the stadium.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how honored I am, how excited I am for that opportunity for Morgan Scalley's first game as head coach at Rice-Eccles Stadium. I've known him personally. I could not advocate more for a human being and also as a coach. You know, I knew him as a player. And obviously as he was able to climb as a coach as well. And so personally, I'm rooting for him. There's no doubt. And I don't just think it's the way I feel about him as to why I have the opinion that I do about him, that he's going to do really, really well. And that it's his time to go out there, take this program, and go do amazing things. While I'm excited for him, and obviously I've always been a big fan of Kalani as well, I'm excited for all these other coaches who have been looking forward to an opportunity to move up and to be in a spot where they can show what they're also capable of doing with new responsibilities and new opportunities. From Papinga to Swan, we could go down the list of names, but the point is this, Porter, that is going to be an exciting new era of college football for these two programs. Too often people have been discussing what has been wrong. Player leaves, coach is gone, you know, something happened to Utah, now there's a lawsuit, and I'm really trying to put the lens, not just because I try to be a positive person, but put the lens of positivity on opportunity, new era, and the excitement, not just because of the newness, but just how ready all of these people are. They're really ready for this. They're ready for this era. They're ready for the challenge. And I love that we have so many coaches in so many places and in positions where this is personal to them. It is personal to Morgan Scalley as head coach of the University of Utah. He doesn't just want to let himself down. He doesn't want to let his family down. He doesn't want to let the state down. He doesn't want to let any of you fans who had tickets that went to the game, because he was one of those kids, and he was a fan in an era where, you know, his team was not the favorite, or, you know, where there was a challenge and there was a hatred in the rivalry. And it is personal to him that he succeeds. And I think when you have that, you measure something differently. Uh-huh. I've said it so often. When Jim Harbaugh was at Michigan and they were losing to Michigan State, that was the shocker. That was the one, like, some of those losses they shouldn't have been losing.
One of them, to be clear.
Whereas punter drops it, yeah. But they were actually the underdog in that game. You know what I mean? Like, so even
tough
then,
to put that one on the coach.
So anyway, but some of these others where they're a 24-point favorite, where they're a 14-point favorite. I was at the massive rainstorm in 2017. Point being, even when he wasn't able to beat Ohio State because he didn't have nearly as many resources in that era, but the point was, I kept saying, he's going to figure it out. Oh, he's too stubborn. He's too that. No, he's always evolving. He's always changing things, even to the point that he had a staffer who was doing everything he could to decipher signals. I mean, he will do whatever it takes. And a guy in Morgan Scalley is going to be the same way. This is personal to him. This matters to him. He's not going to go out there and start to make excuses for an 8-4 season. He expects more than that. And if he doesn't feel like he is able to hit elite top levels it's going to keep him up at night. And he's going to be the guy that's driven to the point that you want your coach to be driven to. Jay Hill, when he was at BYU, a couple of seasons ago, where he had to take a second because he was overextending himself?
Right.
Yeah, because it matters to him. It matters to him that he's great at what he does. Well, now you mix that in with a guy in Morgan Scalley where it matters to him that he's great at what he does, combined with the fact that this is the place he's always wanted to do it. And all of that together, if you're a University of Utah fan, you must have the patience. Not in the baby steps patience, no. If there's a part of his game that's not right on point, and I mean right on point, he knows, and he's going to attack it with everything he has. And that's the way Kyle Whittingham was too, but this is another level, in my opinion. So what you're not going to have is the weird bumps and skids that Kalani had first-time head coach, where you ended up with losing to UMass. You're not going to have the weird bumps and skids that Kyle Whittingham had as first-time head coach, where you ended up going inside out and getting shut out by UNLV and dump trucked by Wyoming and stonewalled by Colorado State.
Won 5 games.
Oh my gosh. And you're not going to have some of that stuff. So you're now advanced in that area. What I'm saying is wherever the blemishes happen to be, and they're going to be there, this guy is going to go all in on correcting it.
I have no doubt about Morgan's buy-in, about Morgan's connection to this program. Okay. He is a lifer. His dad, his brother, his grandpa, everything about Morgan Scalley screams Utah. And that adds another layer to this where even though Kyle spent 3 decades here, literally spans my lifetime. I talked about this last time I hosted the show. Kyle was hired 2 months before I was born at the University of Utah. But he came from BYU. There was always a little bit of that seeped out, at least into folks around the program, that this is a BYU guy, right? Coaching the Utes. You don't get any of that with Morgan Scalley. And there's some excitement there, and there should be. But away from all of that, Morgan is also, from a technical standpoint, one of the smartest guys I've ever talked to about the sport. Just zooming out, defense, you talk about a guy who is creative, is willing to take chances, is all over the map. I want to say like a genius when it comes to the sport, right? And you combine that with something that you couldn't force Morgan Scalley out, right? Like he would run a coup against you if you tried to get Morgan Scalley out of this seat. Kyle, we saw what happened. So there's also an emotional connection here that you haven't had with any coach in Utah football history. A literal life as a Ute for Morgan Scalley. And I think that adds a dynamic to him as a coach that is interesting, on top of being a true schematic whiz, right? That to me is it's fun, and it adds something in this era of college football where you're talking about alumni, you're talking about money seeping into the sport and maybe being more important than certain things. It's not more important than how connected you are to the program and how connected you are to the community. Morgan has been here his entire life and has an emotional connection to this program that cannot be measured. Not by an NIL budget, not by a TV deal, not by any of the above. You cannot measure that. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, that's why I think, big picture, I think he'll do well. But the one thing I go into that first year is just there's certain things about managing a staff as the head coach that are different. That first year is
you can't practice for it either.
You can't, and that doesn't mean that he won't be aware, and that doesn't mean that he won't recognize it. It just means there's stuff like going back to this real quickly. Jim Harbaugh takes that first-year job there at Michigan, right? And I understand he'd been a head coach before, but that's not the point. This is his first year at that program, okay? So he had to overhaul so much, and I know that Morgan doesn't have to. So he went all in fundamentals, and he had to build things from like the very, very, very beginning. Well, when you're going through all of that, and you're going through all those details. And now all of a sudden your O-line is set, your D-line is set, and you're trying to build from scratch. You know some of the things he didn't have time to go over? Right. Hey, if we get in this situation, we need every person blocking when your opponent brings 11 people to grab, hold, face mask, tackle, because they will decline the penalty. And if they accept the penalty, we keep the down. So remember, they're bringing 11. You know what he didn't have time to do? Make sure that his special teams coordinator knew how to coach his punter, an Australian who didn't know the rules, and how to handle an emergency situation, right? That's the stuff Jim didn't have time to do. Jim was just like, dude, you've got to do that. That special teams coordinator botched a lot of that. A lot of what happened was preventable, and I know Blake O'Neill eventually dropped the ball. It's not the point. The point is Jim did not have that kind of time. He's doing way too much else. Otherwise, you watched how John Harbaugh handled the same exact situation in a Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh would have had that nailed down. Somebody's like, well, how does that happen? And how did that? Because in order to win 10 games that year, they had to go over blocking, tackling, the outside leverage. They had to go over every technique, everything, foot placement, on and on and on. So in that first year of a new job, even having been a head coach before, there's stuff that will just not always be as polished. And it's going to be the same thing for Morgan here. It just is.
Well, and in today's age, Tony, there's more things that you have to kind of concern yourself with.
That's a great point.
How does Morgan Scalley handle boosters and a general manager and a private equity group in Otro Capital who's going to want to talk to you and be involved in some form or fashion, right? There are things to being a head football coach in 2026 that were not part of being a head football coach in 2020 and 2015 and 2010 and 1990. It's just a different ballgame now.
Yeah.
And that's something that Morgan will have to deal with, and it's going to be part of how we cover and analyze what he does as the head coach. As far as the football stuff go, I am super confident in that guy, not only on the defensive side of the ball, but I think his time as a defensive coordinator has prepared him to be able to put a large imprint on what the offense does. And his time as a defensive coordinator made me feel like he is a little bit more willing to risk it in some ways than his predecessor, Kyle Whittingham, was. And I think on the offensive side, that higher your ceiling much more than it does on the defensive side. On offense, man, you can take risks, and sometimes they pay off in big ways. And I'm going to be excited to see what that actually looks like with Morgan Scalley at the helm. We're going to talk about all this and more with our friend Andrea Urban on the other side of Fox 13 TV. This segment brought to you by our friends at Advanced Windows and advancedwindows.com. Head over to their website to check out the final month of their summer window special, $2,500 off. When you purchase 10 windows or more, discounts can be prorated for fewer than 10 windows. So if you have a smaller space you need updating, you can do that as well. They give you a home court advantage, folks. Local manufacturing, local window and doors, selling directly to the public. So it goes from Advanced Windows, where they build, where they make them, straight to you. No middleman, no markups in that direction. Family owned since 1986. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, our friends over there at Advanced Windows, are celebrating 40 years in business with thousands and thousands of satisfied customers. Built right, installed right, and a lifetime guarantee. It is Advanced Windows. Like I mentioned, the lifetime warranty coverage, services, all by a local Utah team. A smart play for your home upgrade. Of course, your number one asset being that home. It's Advanced Windows, advancedwindows.com, or 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Our friends at Advanced Windows. Back on the other side, Andrea Urban of Fox 13 stops by. It is The Drive. Tony Parks, myself, Porter Larson, filling in for Spence on this Thursday on ESPN 700. Welcome back. Drive time on a Thursday afternoon. Porter Larson, Tony Parks taking you through it. Spence will be back with you on a Monday. It's us tomorrow, Friday afternoon as well. As we've discussed, when Spence is out and I'm in, we get a little more country tunes on the station.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ella Langley bringing us back in.
I remember I was I forget where I even was. I was on the road, was putting down stuff in my score sheet, and all of a sudden this song's going on in the stadium. And I was like, wait, what is this? This is amazing. Every now and again you hear a song for the first time, and you're like, wait, this is great. Anyway.
Yeah, it's
this is one of those.
I think now like the longest running number one female artist in quite some time. We talked about it a lot. Like I don't really like new country music, but she's an exception there. I must admit a
total star.
A little country crush on.
Oh yeah, no,
Ella
you
Langley.
made that very clear. Yeah, I was last time we talked about that on the air.
Speaking of choosing Texas, the Big 12 media poll. Coaches poll. Most people choosing Texas Tech.
I was going to say.
Now, to be clear, BYU has gotten some regard there as well.
Yes.
We'll get to all of that, some more, some Utah Jazz with our friend Andrea Urban, Fox 13. Andrea, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm sitting back here trying not to get excited about Ella Langley myself. I was like, what a song choice. I will take it.
Uh-huh.
You're a fan then? At least of the song.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, a fan of all of it, yeah. And for that to bring me in, I just think really sets the tone for quite a good conversation here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll start with a little football here in the market. I saw you up at fall camp a number of times talking Utah football and speaking with the coaches and the players. What's your read on University of Utah football and how ready they are to start the Morgan Scalley era? Andrea, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to sound like I'm just this fan of sorts, but the truth is I believe in Morgan Scalley. I think if I was ever a football player, I would want to play for Morgan Scalley because he's fired up. And you see it in those moments where they let us watch parts of practice. He's so involved and intertwined, and he's not just hollering at guys with what to do. He's getting in the drills and demonstrating himself. And I think that just goes such a long way when you've got a firing, burning passion in your head coach. It makes you want to show up yourself. And that's what I've been asking these guys at fall camp is, he's been on the defensive side where it's the relentless, nasty ball hawks. And now that's bled throughout the entire team. And I can hear that from the offensive guys from the offensive line telling me themselves, yeah, that's now on our side of the ball. And then even the defensive guys telling me it's been really cool watching the whole team kind of adapt to that mindset. So when I hear that, every time I ask about Scalley, they go, oh, man, and they take a breath. And they answer thoughtful, just how involved he is. And I think that's what stems to a beginning of a successful run for sure.
I am always curious about this. You were at Michigan State with Mark D'Antonio, and you had a chance to watch all of that, and a guy in Mel Tucker who, really did so much to wait his time for the chance to then be a head coach and to have those things. Well, he took over for a guy in that there at Michigan State. And, so you had a coach who was there a long time, and then you have a fairly new head coach. I understand that Mel wasn't brand new. What are some of those unique things that you would see, or that would at least you would most want to discover while watching him in that first season?
I want Scalley to find his identity with this team, which I know is kind of a broad statement, but Utah football has always been known for its defense. Well, what is the other thing that this team is going to embrace? Devin Dampierre's been locking in on his throw game. So now do we see maybe more of that where Utes got this new identity this season? I just want I want Scalley to create a new just, I don't know, something where it's like, yes, this is what these Utes are known for, and that came when the Scalley era started, if that makes sense. Because when you're under a head coach for so long, it's you want to honor that tradition, but at the same time make a tradition of your own. So Specifically, I just would love to see. I'd love to see that offensive side of the ball really have something going. Maybe there's something in that wide receiver room that we're not seeing just yet that's going to click with the new additions. And so I would like to see that, because why not make your own mark on a program that already is so legendary?
When you look at Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham, you kind of mentioned the parallels there and some of the contrasts. Where is his best opportunity to make his own mark? Is it, I know he's a defensive coordinator, but to me, Andrea, it almost feels like the offensive side of the football. Not saying it was necessarily limited under Kyle as far as production goes. They have some of the best run teams in the country year in, year out, some of the most balanced offenses in the country year in and year out. But there was always a thought that Kyle maybe constricted some of what the offense tried. I feel like Morgan Scalley might be a little bit more open to experimentation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of excited about. Is I think the rare relationship between Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin, you don't see this. Well, now Bird's out there and he throws a TD, so now I got to go back out there and throw a TD, and then they're, supporting each other like they do. Like, those two are true friends. I've run into both Bird and Devin together at Utah Jazz games when I'm working and hosting a game, and those guys will come right up to me and they're like, hey, yeah, we're here as friends. And I think that camaraderie is so important when you could really use both of these QBs in such a unique way. I know we saw it last year, but it was really because Dampier was dealing with an on and off injury, so Bird had to really step up. But if we could have both of them healthy and kind of have this dual QB situation, and then you mentioned the run game, I'm excited for Wayshawn Parker and to see what that guy's going to do, because now he's been in this system, the passion. It's hard for me because I talk to these guys and they get passionate about McGivern and the new additions, and I don't know how much I'm just a media member where I'm like, wow, look at them telling me these awesome things. But I go really a lot based off of just energy and how the tone of voice and the demeanor of these guys. And it seems like everybody wants to talk about it and that they're not dancing around their answers. And I think that the players are as equally as excited about the new era. So, yes, Scalley could lean into this offensive side, but also we've got this new addition of McGivern, and then you bring Braden Pagan from Utah State, who knows his offense. And so that's kind of what I'm excited to see is Scalley sitting back, locking in on the culture and letting his coordinators do his thing, which I think is just going to bring so much more dynamic football. And again, I want to see that run just down the throats of these other Big 12 teams.
Well, and I think I love the excitement of what you're talking about there. One thing I don't think it's talked about enough is, like, when Kyle really started to make some great strides as head coach, it was also a number of other coaches underneath the surface or behind the scenes, if you will, getting new opportunities. And Kalani Sitake was one of them, actually, going way, way back. But how much should it be talked about that a guy like Colton Swan is really primed for this opportunity, right? And that he's ready to step in and be the best coach for a new head coach and everything that's going on with the collective experience there. Because while we talk so much about the head coach, what are your thoughts about the overall depth on the staff that Morgan Scalley is working with?
Yeah, right off the bat, I like that there's a few true blue Utah Ute coaches that stuck around. Even Luther Ellis is an example of that. Like those men who've been around the program that are going to continue to keep that Utah football family foundation, and Colton Swan, of course, too. I like the relationship between Scalley and Swan. I've seen it with my own eyes, just how they communicate with one another. And then even just from previous seasons, when I speak to position coaches and Colton Swan would come up to speak, those quick, brief moments you get to speak to each position coach on random Mondays or Tuesdays, he just spoke with such confidence and understanding of the task at hand. Some position coaches are like, yeah, we're working on being bigger, faster, stronger. And I always thought Swan brought exact examples and wasn't afraid to call out players in those moments because he believed in what they were capable of. And so even if saying, hey, so-and-so isn't showing up, they will the next game. And then now we all have a storyline where it's like, he wanted him to, and now he is. And so that's what excites me is you've got the foundation of a few coaches that stuck around, but then you have this new chapter of a page that's turning with these new coaches that are coming in under the belief of those, I guess, OG guys right there. So, yeah, I have a belief in that. And that's what we asked Scally. How much has your role changed this fall camp? And he said it's allowing the coordinators to do their thing and me leaning into leading this culture. So that's what excites me. Like, I am genuinely looking forward to all the storylines across the state, whether it's, BYU redeeming themselves in that college football playoff, Utah Utes under first-year head coach. Then you go over to Utah State and you got second year under Bronco Mendenhall. Like, what are we going to see in the Pac-12 out there? And then Eric Carup at Weber State from his successful state championship after state championship with Corner Canyon. Like, you look at any college football team across the state and you should never be bored on a Saturday.
Yeah, I think the depth of storylines that we have this year in state specifically is something to be excited about. Let's move down south, as you just mentioned, Kalani and Co. Some off-season, I guess, turbulence, drama, whatever you want to call it. But when we get down to football, that is a roster that is primed and ready to go for a really good run at a Big 12 championship. Obviously, some defensive turnover. Jay Hill to Papinga. There's going to be a little bit of an adjustment there. But what are your expectations of BYU coming into a season where they just return so much production?
Yeah, and I'm glad Tony alluded to the fact that I'm a Michigan State Spartan, so I've got no skin in the game with either of these schools. So when I say I like one and I like another, it doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
Because it's true. I also believe in Bear Bachmeier because look what he was able to do as a true freshman, and then now he looks like an absolute tank. When I've seen him the few times in Provo at fall camp, that he carries himself like he's been a part of this program for some sort of veteranship stretch, and he's in his sophomore season. So you put him back under center, and you got L.J. Martin running it up the gut, and then you've just, yes, the wide receiver room has got a big plot twist in it with Chase Roberts and the Parker Kingstons and the Cody Hagens moving on and so on. But really, I'm thrilled to continue to see that offense under Aaron Roderick, which we're used to that, right? But Bear has grown up a little bit. And then going to the defensive side, similar to a Colton Swan who's been around the program, so has Papinga. So you have that change, but also that consistency that you've had faith and trust in. And so, yes, there's off-season talk, drama, but you know what? I know those boys, and I'm talking to players, they just want to show up and tackle each other and hit each other hard and kick some butt, especially the fact that this rivalry between red and blue is much earlier than the season than we've seen in the past. And I know that it's always going to be a good one. And so I'm both of these teams, but BYU especially, I cannot wait to see what these guys do. And I mean it. I'm not just trying to pump anyone's tires.
No, it's one thing you and I have always said, not that we are at all friends with our favorite football teams by any means. But with me as a Michigan fan, I try to say the same thing. Like, no, I love talking about the local teams in different ways and love it when it's positive, or when I have a question mark, it's certainly there. You're also a Chicago kid, so in my opinion, like, Volare is the most overlooked hidden gem when it comes to great restaurants. It's in Streeterville. It's in my neighborhood. We love it. It's awesome. And so in your eyes, what would be the most overlooked or the hidden gem restaurant-wise in the city? And then match that to maybe the most overlooked, or what is the hidden gem in terms of a talking point or a player or a coach or something like that with the football season coming up.
And this can be overall for anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to for sure shout out Osteria Moore. It's actually over by the University of Utah on 1300.
Okay.
My dear friend Eduardo owns it. He flies in all of his stuff from overseas. You go there and you feel like you're transported to another country. I've celebrated my mom's birthday, my birthday at Osteria Moore, and I've actually finished at Utah football day games and got a spot solo at that restaurant and just enjoyed some pasta and some, good times. So I think that's so important when you can transfer into another world at a restaurant in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'll shout them out. And then position-wise or team-wise, I mean, I don't want to – I already kind of mentioned storyline here because, of course, Big 12, Utah and BYU are already in the top 25. Those guys are worth paying attention to, of course. But I'm just so excited to see what Eric Kerr is going to do at the collegiate level.
Yes.
Because if you can win 7 state championships with Corner Canyon, who I think his record was like 100 and whatever, and then double digits for losses. And so it's just like, if you're able to do that, but with the number 1 team in the state for high school, that's fabulous. But what is the differentiator? It's like when a coach goes from college to professional. Like, what changes? What can you do when he has, I believe, 75 new players on his Weber State roster?
Yes.
And it's his first time leading a collegiate team. And I know it's that FBS level, but my goodness, I want to see that same Eric Kerr that paced up and down that Rice-Eccles sideline in all of his state championship games. I want to see that same energy in purple in Ogden come fall.
Okay. I think you're right on with that, too, because, look, the guy knows how to coach. We know that. But local in-state recruiting, I think he's obviously going to be valuable for that. What we don't know, to your point, is how do you build and how well do you manage a staff? It's a whole new ballgame, obviously, at the college football level. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that, too, because I know the guy personally, love him, and couldn't be rooting for a guy more than I am Eric Kerr. So I think that is the Volare, if you will, as I would call it. So what is it again? The place you go to? Sorry, I forget what it was called. I need to write this down.
Osteria Amore, Osteraa, and then Amore. Hey. Osteria Amore. You are just going to have a time and a half, and it feels like family when you walk into that place. And
yes.
And again, I'm only doing it because every birthday, if it comes around my birthday time, you'll find me at Osteria Amore.
So Eric Kerr is the Osteria Amore, or the Volare of the college football scene. I love it.
There's your little college football wraparound with Andrea Urban of Fox 13. Give us a little preview before we set you loose, Andrea, of what Utah Jazz season will look like, of course, with another season with you on the mic there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if if I just love what I do or if I love the storylines of this state. But after 4 seasons of hyping up a crowd when you're down by 20, I'm looking forward to a 5th season of winning some basketball games with number 2 overall pick Darren Peterson and Keontae George. And then you add Jaren Jackson Jr., go green, go white, paired with Lowry Markkanen, and the fact that Yusuf Nurkic is proudly returning to Utah, and in his post, he's at the state capitol posing with the Capitol building. Like the fact is these guys are buying in to Utah, and that's what we need out of NBA players that are going to come play in Salt Lake City. And the renovations to the arena that Ryan Smith's been updating on Twitter. How do you not get excited as a fan to attend any of these games, to 1, see those changes, 2, experience it as a fan, and 3, finally see good basketball on the hardwood? And I'm not saying it wasn't good before. It's just a work in progress, and we're learning, and we're watching these guys grow. Keontae George is a perfect example. He's 22 years old, and I've never ever seen a 22-year-old just absolutely grow up at the pace that he has, and then we watch him be in the all-star conversation because he's doing exactly that. He's listening to Will Hardy, and he's growing up, and he's bringing that production onto the floor. So, yeah, I want to see all of that. I want to see healthy guys, and I'm excited to win some basketball games for sure.
Andrea, appreciate your time. Apologies, we were irresponsible with the clock today, so a little short with you.
Here.
But we'll get you back on soon, and we'll do so before we kick off football season. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Poor Tony, it's great to talk to both of you. I'm honored to call you guys friends and colleagues, and let's get to the fall.
Let's do. Go Blue.
We'll see you out there.
Oh, please! Now I gotta hang up.
See you, Andrea.
Bye.
I'll see ya.
Andrea Urban of Fox 13, brought to you today by our friends at America First Credit Union.
Yeah.
They are offering effortless payday stuff by enrolling in direct deposit with America First. Get your paycheck deposited automatically into your account so you can access your money faster and avoid the hassle of manual deposits. Choose America First. Credit Union. Convenience, faster access, seamless experience. Just enroll in direct deposit today and make payday effortless. Set it up through online or mobile banking. Visit a branch or contact America First for assistance. Of course, America First Credit Union, our friends over at the ballpark, know plenty about that.
I'm an alum of America First Credit Union.
Are you?
Yeah. No, I worked there for years.
There
Yeah,
we go.
still do some stuff with it. And a proud non-alum of the University of Michigan. So, yeah, I'm a fan of where I'm a fan. No, I've always been big on America First. Everything about them. They treat people like people. I've always enjoyed that, love that, still have great friends that work over there, and we stay in touch, and I'll always be grateful for the good people that I've connected with over there during so many years.
Back
Always.
on the other side, Tony Parks, myself, Porter Larson, and Preston Handy on the show today of Handy Law Utah. He's going to give us the latest on the Utes and Fred Whittingham and plenty more in the legal side of sports. It is Sports Court, and it comes your way after a quick break right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. It is Sports Court time here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We do it each and every Thursday. Our friends Preston and Garrett Handy of Handy Law Utah. Handy and Handy, of course. Just Garrett today joining us. I am Porter Larson. And Garrett, I've got my gavel ready. We're ready.
I love it.
We're ready to do this thing. Let's start with Jaden Daniels, who we know here from the market because he was very close to being a Utah Ute before he went to Arizona State. And then he had an interesting exit from Arizona State, went to LSU where he became a Heisman Trophy winner, very talented player, had a good rookie year with the Washington Commanders. But it seems like everywhere he goes, he also leaves a little tale of drama. And that's exactly what's happening in Louisiana. He has sent a cease and desist letter, or at least his people have sent a cease and desist letter to LSU over the use of his jersey, his IP and NIL. Basically, he's mad that he won a Heisman and they are not retiring his number and or paying him for using all of his name's images or likeness. And again, LSU is allowing a player to wear the number 5 jersey in 2026. What do you got?
That's right. Lane Kiffin has promised his recruit, DJ Pickett, that he can wear number 5. So that's part of what I think started this controversy. And as you kind of mentioned, I mean, Jaden Daniels feels slighted and that his reputation is and legacy is, for some time he spent there is being tarnished. And so what we're seeing now is this, cease and desist letter. And I know people hear that, and I think people probably generally do understand that that's not a lawsuit, but it can be an opening salvo, right, for some litigation. And usually these letters do outline some of those claims. And so it's sort of a, hey, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, you could face, some legal action. And so, part of the idea here with this is this just some saber rattling, or is there something really behind this? And does Jaden Daniels have kind of the legal legs to stand on, so to say, to bring a case against LSU for these issues? And I think it's easiest, Porter, if we just kind of separate them, right? I mean, so on the one hand, we've got NIL. Let's talk about that. I mean, I think, just giving you my opinion about it, that's probably his strongest claim, right? Is to say, hey, LSU, you can't, use my NIL for commercial purposes, right, and profit off that without compensating me for it. I think we all know enough about NIL at this point to understand that part I think is pretty clear. But the jersey brings up just an interesting, idea here, right? I mean, is that number 5 jersey so associated with Jaden Daniels at LSU that is his NIL, right? Or is a jersey number different? That's a little bit of I think the gray area here legally. I don't think it is. I don't think the jersey number is NIL, and that we've got another player using it. So I don't think that's really strong. He was part of the House settlement, and I think LSU's going to raise that, and they could also raise some Copyright Act preemption defenses, and so that we've seen that sort of thing before. But right now, this cease and desist letter from his attorney, like I said, it's just a little bit of saber rattling, and they want to see if they can get LSU to stop doing this, I guess. But I don't know that it's a great look for Jaden Daniels. I mean, again, just with his own, Mr. Big Time at the Commanders and season coming up, but seems like a distraction. Yeah,
certainly some sort of distraction. And as you mentioned, it's kind of two separate things going on here where your NIL is something you can own and have a say in. And this might spur LSU and other schools across the country to maybe make agreements with players once they move on, right? So this is what we're going to do with our future. We want to maybe use you on some of our marketing materials or otherwise because you're a player from our school who's now in the NFL, right? But you got to come to an agreement on that and what it looks like beforehand, just as you did with the player when he was active there. The jersey number stuff is, I think, just Jaden kind of showing some colors on certain things because he's upset that they're not retiring his number. Buddy, you went 10-3 and got to the SEC title. Yes, you won an individual award at the Heisman, but Jarvis Landry, star wideout at LSU, wore number 5. Darius Juice wore number 5. Skylar Green, who was on the an All-American in the 2000s, wore number 5. Kerry Vincent was a contributor to a national championship at LSU. He wore a number 5. You're not getting that number retired because you don't deserve to have that number retired. You were there for a couple of years and you never won a national championship or otherwise. So with all due respect, that part of it is silly coming from Jaden Daniels' camp. They're just trying to connect it in a way where they can maybe either get LSU to stop doing the NIL stuff or get some compensation when they do.
That's right.
Moving on, ex-BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff has settled a sexual assault lawsuit with the woman who still now is claiming that while he made partial payments of the settlement, is not or hasn't come through on some of the other stuff. Give us the latest here, something that was a big story last offseason and then kind of quieted down.
Yeah, no, it was a big story, right? I mean, the case, I can't believe it's been over a year, but the case was dismissed the end of June 2025. And, I think we all kind of knew what that meant. What it really means, if you're reading between the lines, is they decided to settle the case. And that as part of the settlement, Jake Retzloff was going to pay some money because this is a civil case. And so, sure enough, that's what it is, right? And we're learning a little bit more about the settlement because what's happened now is her attorneys have filed a motion to enforce the settlement agreement. So after they make a decision that, hey, we're going to settle this case, and they've come to an agreement about a number, there's an actual settlement agreement, right? It's a document that is signed, and it's like a contract. And so what this settlement agreement lays out is that he's going to make two equal payments. The first one was last July 3rd, 2025. Apparently, he made that payment on time. The second one is July 3rd this year, and he did not make the payment. And so then the settlement agreement lays out, okay, well, what happens, right, when there's a breach? And so, they've got to put Retzloff's attorneys on notice and let them know, hey, you didn't pay according to the terms of the agreement. You got 30 days to make this right. The 30 days ran. Nothing happened. No communication, no payment. So, sure, her attorneys have gone ahead and said, hey, we're going to go back to the judge then and say, hey, judge, can you make them, adhere to the terms of our settlement agreement? So that's what we've got now. What's laid out in their motion, if we look at the settlement agreement, I think the terms are pretty unambiguous, that he needs to going to have to make that payment.
Moving on, Live Golf has cut prize money. They face lawsuits, and they're preparing for their season finale amid rumors that they are going to or were about to shut down entirely. What are they facing as far as the lawsuits go? Is this players that are expecting the prize money that was promised, or what's going on here?
Not players yet. We could see that. Right now, this is really coming from some like vendors and contractors and business partners who are saying, "Hey,
gotcha.
We've done work for Live, and you're not paying us. You're not paying our invoices." And so, it's pretty clear Live Golf is running out of money. Their Saudi investors have pulled out of this, and they're not going to make it. And so, they start floating out there that they've got a potential bankruptcy filing coming. And so these vendors are seeing that. I mean, one, for example, is called Fresh Tape Media, some sort of media partner. And they're apparently a small business, and they're owed about $1 million, and they've got a stack of invoices going back months and months that Liv's just not paying. And so they filed a lawsuit. And so Liv's going through this, trying to figure this out and pay things, yet hold back $50 million for the purse, but also at the same time for their season finale tournament, but also looking to reduce those purses. And so we could see a lot of things. I mean, John Rahm's owed over $100 million. Do they have that money to pay him? Right. And what happens?
And how do you enforce it when it's mostly coming from a Saudi fund, right?
Well, right.
That can
and
get interesting as well.
And have that protection. So, I think that's what's kind of happening here.
Gotcha. Well, we'll continue to keep an eye on that. We'll have a little golf update for you in the final segment of the show. But the story that is very obviously the one of the day for Sports Court, the University of Utah has filed a lawsuit in the 3rd District Court of Utah against a Whittingham. This one, Fred Whittingham, the brother to Coach Kyle Whittingham, who followed Kyle to Ann Arbor. And they are claiming that Freddie breached his contract and also recruited players to Michigan while he was still an employee, technically, at the University of Utah. They want their money for the contract back and damages for what he did while he was still technically an employee here, to the tune of more than $1 million. Take it away, Garrett.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so he's got an employment contract. I mean, I think everybody knows these are state employees, right? And
right.
And some of the very, very top, highly paid state employees. I mean, clearly the football coach is the highest paid state employee. But Freddie Whittingham is up there, right? And so he's got an underlying contract, and every year it looks like there were 3 amendments to his employment contract. The latest one had him making like $525,000 as base salary. There's incentives in there for going to a bowl game or winning a conference championship and things like that. But he's got an employment contract. I mean, most people don't, right? We don't have employment contracts with our employers, but he does, and it's laid out. And so part of that contract, and I think, just to kind of pull out the important points here, is that he's going to give written or get written consent before seeking other jobs, right? If he's going to go on a job hunt, he's going to let him know. And then he's also going to give him a formal resignation notice. So those 2 things in particular, right? And what the lawsuit alleges is they're saying, hey, this guy just in the night packs up his office and is gone. And then the next day we see him out on the Wolverines basketball court with his brother. And not only that, but he had duties and responsibilities here, and he just left and took players with him, and that's harmed us. And so, kind of interesting that to see the contract, and go through it, but it does have a liquidated damages buyout in there. I mean, we've been on here, Porter, for so many times on Sports Court talking about, coaches and their contracts, and usually we're talking about a firing, right? Where
right.
There's a for cause or without cause, but what about when the coach just leaves and breaches the contract? So there's this 75% of the annual salary. You mentioned $1 million. Basically saying, hey, he had a fiduciary duty to the university, and it makes us look bad, and is not. Maybe we could put that in terms of kind of some loyalty, right? When he just leaves like this and doesn't tell us and takes players with him. So, the J.G. Buchanan. Right?
Yeah. And the obvious thing here is that they're suing Freddie, but not Kyle, not Jason Beck, not Lewis Powell, not Doug Iliasaya. Go down the list, and from what it appears, it might just be because Freddie didn't do the paperwork or have his lawyers do the paperwork that all those other guys did. There's a possibility that's all it is, and he pays up, and that's the end of it. But we'll see if this continues on. Garrett, appreciate your time. Tell Preston to get back here, and we'll do this again next week. Give the folks a little lowdown of Handy and where they can find you guys.
Yeah, well, everybody out knows, we've been coming on here a long time, but we help people who've been injured in accidents. Yeah, thanks, Porter.
Back on the other side, we'll wrap up the show, give you a little PGA Tour leaderboard update, round 2 of the FedEx Cup Championship playoff, and we'll go from there. It is The Drive with myself, Porter Larson, Tony Parks filling in for Spence Checketts today. We'll be back with you tomorrow as well, right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. A little rose-colored glasses for you. That's John Conley bringing us back in on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Maybe a little ode to the news cycle in Salt Lake City this offseason. We got some rose-colored glasses here on your home of the Utes. Nothing wrong with that. 14 days away from kickoff as the Morgan Scally era begins, and our spurned lovers are in Ann Arbor now. We'll keep the rose-colored glasses on. Although, I know, it's a polarizing take here in Salt Lake City this year, but I will not be cheering against the Whittinghams. No way, shape, or form. Guys that were really good to me for a number of years. You can cheer however you want. I want to see both programs have really good years, BYU as well, so that we can see them play meaningful football in November and December. Maybe January. That'd be a lot of fun. That'll do it for The Drive. Big thanks to Tony Parks for stopping by. Andrea Urban, Craig Bolerjack for joining the program. On your way out, how about a PGA Tour leaderboard update from our friends at Uinta Golf? Scotty Scheffler, your overall leader, but not a great day for Scotty at the Bellavere Country Club. Scotty finished 2 over 72. He's way down in 44th place with a bunch of guys at 2 over But the leaderboard is a logjam. Gary Woodland, Wyndham Clark, Rory McIlroy, J.J. Spawn, Chris Gotterup, all 5 of those guys shot a 64. They are 6 under going into a Friday at the BMW Championship. And those are the guys to watch as we head into the weekend. It is your PGA Tour leaderboard update at the BMW Championships and brought to you by Uinta Golf. Tomorrow on the show, Tony Parks and I will be back with you. Spence will be back on a Monday. But a big thanks to all of you who listened, whether it was on ESPN700sports.com, on the AM or FM radio side. Maybe you're listening later in podcast form or watching live on YouTube. We appreciate each and every one of you for joining the program and joining the station. For all of our guests, Andrea, Bowler, Tony Parks, I am Porter Larson, and this is Utah's #1 sports talk in your home of the Utes for 75 years and counting. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.